game is an amateur game. I mean, the professional side of it, there are idols and heroes and fun to watch them play. But I mean, if it wasn't for amateur golf, there would be no golf.
You have to remember, when you play a golf course and you're out there for 4 hours or whatever, you're only hitting a ball for 15 minutes of that. So there's a lot of time to look around.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Top 100 Clubhouse podcast. I'm your host, James Henderson. I'm here with Dave Sampson of European Golf Design. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm well, thanks. And thanks for having me on your podcast.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It's great to have you on. You're obviously got a wee bit of an accent, a South African accent, is that?
Yes, definitely South African accent. Born in the UK, but spent 20 years when I back in South Africa from the age of 3, and then returned to the UK 2003. Yeah, so been here ever since. Yeah.
Well, when did you fall in love with golf? When did golf start for you?
So I was, well, I'd have to thank my father for that. He was an avid sportsman. I was 9 years old. My brother was 7. He had an old set of clubs, split them in half. I had the evens, he had the odds, and pretty much from day one, I fell in love with the game. I was scribbling golf balls on the back of any piece of paper I could get. Doing routings, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I think I say to people, do what you love. And I've just been very lucky that I am able to do what I love. And it's, just extremely fortunate.
Do you think that when you were younger, there was any golf courses that inspired you to then take on those routing plans and the drawings, or?
To be honest, like at a young age, I was just playing just became a member of, a golf course called Wingate Park in Pretoria. And, we didn't play any special golf courses out there, but it was just, I used to remember driving on holidays, these long drives from Pretoria down to the coast, and just looking out the window thinking, oh, that'd be a lovely piece of land for a golf course. And, like sort of that anticipation when you used to come into one of these rural towns that there was always going to be this little golf course in that town, and just looking out for it. So it's hard to explain, but I just always wanted to do. So it was, it was all sports really. I mean, it was golf courses. I would draw Formula One tracks, football kits, all that sort of thing. I think just, sport in general. And I think, growing up, I think, my father was an avid sportsman. I am, my brother is. It's just, I'm just so grateful that I've, fallen into, an occupation in sport.
Well, so tell me about this competition that changed everything.
So I took all my subjects in school, thinking I want to become a golf course architect. And then anyway, it's a long story. A girlfriend was involved, but I ended up doing building architecture. And my housemate at the time, he was also, we were both in a cricket academy down in Port Elizabeth in South Africa. And
Batter ball.
I used to be a left-arm spinner until I got the yips. So then I turned into a batter. So that's what I do now.
So you're South Africa's Steve Smith.
I'm not that good. That's for sure. I don't know, but cricket and golf, love both those games. Anyway, I end up at university, and my housemate, he moved over to London a few years before I did, because I was, architecture was a five-year degree, which I managed to do over 6. And he came over to the UK, and I was finishing my final thesis year, and my grandfather was very ill. He lived in Cardiff, and so I'd come over for his funeral, and my ex-housemate saw him while I was over in London. He said, "Look, I know you love golf course architecture, and this is your dream. Here's a competition in Golf World magazine." So I ended up at Heathrow Airport just scribbling in a few entries, put it in the post, and thought nothing of it. And lo and behold, got a phone call a couple of weeks later that I'd managed to win the competition. I'd actually, on the
Wow.
entry form, I thought if I put South Africa on the entry form, they may go no. So I actually put my mother's address, who was in Bristol, on the entry form. So she got the phone call, and then the phone call came through to me.
How cool.
And yeah, that was the foot in the door. I mean, it didn't get me a job, but European Golf Design ran the competition in collaboration with Golf World at the time. And over the next, well, I was always going to come at the end of my thesis. I was always going to come to the UK. My brother was already here playing professional cricket. My family was all here, so the plan was always to come over. And I mean, I was a reasonable cricketer, and I managed to get a job for the first 6 months as a cricket analyst for Surrey, and that sort of gave me the time to sort of go into the EGD offices, show them what I was doing. They would give me exercises, and in between deliveries, while sort of putting in all the data from as the cricket analyst, I was able, I had golf books, reading the golf books on the side. It was a lot easier when the opening bowler was, taking their time to bowl a delivery. But when Saklen Mushtaq or Ian Salisbury was bowling, I had to be a lot quicker with the inputting of the data. So yeah, but that, those 6 months gave me, a real good opportunity to sort of try and, hone that passion for wanting to be a golf course architect. Nothing came of it for the first, I'd say, a year after that, but the competition, they actually built the hole, and the golf hole was built in Finland at Linna Golf, and they actually have their 20-year reunion this year. So we're hoping to actually, make a trip out there to see the golf hole again. But yeah, it was the year passed, and during construction, that golf hole then came into being. And after a site trip out with a golf architect from EGD, who was Tim Lobb at the time, so a week after that, I got a call from Jeremy Slesser saying, would I like to come in for an interview? And that was back in 2004. So the rest is pretty much history. Yeah.
Well, am I right in saying it was a par 5?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, par 5. Haven't played it. As I say, hopefully come the end of the summer, I might get the opportunity. But yeah, there's a par 5.
It's giving me Alistair McKenzie vibes.
Oh,
with
is it?
Lido when he applied for the Lido Golf Club.
Oh, yeah.
The par 5 in the magazine.
Yeah, well,
Kind of set him.
If I can have a fingertip of his career, that would be amazing. Yeah.
Okay, well, so what golf courses would you say have influenced you the most in your design school of thought?
Well, I keep coming back to the old course. I think, I've played there on numerous occasions. I just love the width, the options, the variety that you have there, and you've really got to strategize your way around that. And I absolutely love that, and try and bring that into pretty much every project that I work on. Having some short fours, real mix of length, real mix of dog legs, giving people options on how to get to the hole. I think that's vitally important, and just creates that a good challenge that challenges players of all ability. And I think that's what we're looking to do, or I'm looking to do for sure.
Is there anything that you think's undervalued in golf course design, or forgotten about by the general public?
Good question. I think the general public, not many golfers see the strategy of the golf hole. I mean, you get a lot of golfers who will come off, and if a golf course is in really great condition, or the quality of the turf, and that's perfectly fine. If that's what means they've had a great round of golf, that's great. But I mean, a lot of my friends, I mean, I'll stand on a tee box and I'm trying to unpick how to play that golf hole, whereas a lot of my friends will just see You know, where's the danger? Where am I not going to lose the ball? You know, and I think that sort of, you know, it's the golf connoisseur really hones in on what the questions are that the golf course or the golf course architect is trying to ask. But I think, you know, looking at a golf course, I think, you know, one of the things that people don't realize is, for me, one of the most important things is the routing plan and
Yeah.
getting a routing plan right. Um, Making sure, you know, as I've mentioned, you have that mix of golf holes, the mix of lengths, change in directions, change in dog legs, all those sort of things. And, you know, there's nothing more satisfying than when you get a virgin piece of land. And more often than not, the trickier the piece of land is, and the more difficulty and cracking that puzzle and solving that puzzle, I think, getting it right, you know that you are then onto, a winner. Um, and I think, I know we're going to talk a little bit about Marco Simone, but I think that the routing of Marco Simone is one of its real strengths. And I think how it played out in the Ryder Cup, um, you know, proves that.
I was going to say that actually. One of the things, that I came away with from the site was the elevation change. And everyone compliments Mackenzie on the elevation change and the way he manages ground at Augusta. But I don't think people realize that at Marco Simone, I think it's something like 20 feet more elevation change at Marco Simone than there is even at Augusta. I might be
Oh, I
wrong
hadn't,
there, but
yeah, I hadn't realized the difference. I mean, we had 50 meters of elevation change.
was that 160 feet?
Yeah,
Just for the
yeah,
American listeners. And I think there's
yeah, yeah.
120 at Augusta, so it's
So
40.
yeah, no, it's significant. And I think, like the beauty of the actual site. I mean, there was, when we walked around there for the first time. I mean, I really saw it as a great opportunity to do something, you know, really well. Obviously, it's a Ryder Cup. You want to do you're obviously trying to do something memorable and special. But the routing. I mean, I remember there was I tried to stay off social media during the Ryder Cup, but there was a just for my soul and sanity. But you there was a couple of comments. The 18th it plays into the setting sun, but there were numerous reasons. Like the clubhouse position was always set. We couldn't do anything
Mm.
about it. And then you had over the front nine plays over, even though it's not flat land, it plays over flatter land. Um, but for a Ryder Cup and Marco Simone, it's always, you're trying to create that lasting legacy, that what people take away. And the more dramatic and more undulating land was always on the back nine. And, you know, making sure that the routing is right, sort of getting the glimpses as you do on the back nine over Rome and, St. Peter's, taking people on that journey. And you want that to come towards the end of the round so that people have that lasting memory. And yes, 18 played, back towards the clubhouse downhill, but yes, it played into the setting sun. But it did actually on the was it day one? 3 games went to 18, and there was great drama. 3 Europeans sung some monster putts. People will remember that. Um, it's not something we'd normally do. Yes, you try and avoid playing east at the beginning and west with your closing hole, but standing on 18T, the highest points on the site, looking over Rome, it sort of comes at a climax of a round and a climax of a Ryder Cup,
Yeah.
or a match in the Ryder Cup, and it was like that's a strong enough case to make to say, I want 18 to play this way. So yeah.
Well, I was going to say, working on that site, obviously a very tricky site to start off with, and you did a redesign of the site, right? There was a golf course
Mm-hmm.
there before. You redesigned
Yeah.
it. Was it a complete redo, as in
Yeah.
routing everything?
Everything changed. Only one golf hole played in the same corridor, but that hole obviously changed as well. But yeah, everything was changed, um, and I think, but with the Ryder Cup, you've got to factor in so many things like where's the practice range going to be, where's hospitality? Where's the village? Where's the buses coming in? And you've got all these things come into a melting pot for a normal Ryder Cup. A Ryder Cup in this one in Rome had, so many other factors. We had gas lines, we had electricity lines. There were 5 huge pylons that cut right through the middle of the site. They had to be rerouted round. We had COVID. I mean, it's just all these things. It made for, it's obviously, yeah.
Sorry, what was the most difficult thing about the site? What was the most difficult thing about the design aspect of it? Was it dealing with crowds? Was it dealing with?
No, I mean, we always had the space. I mean, I wouldn't say so much the difficulty. I mean, it was such a great opportunity, and the golf course had this sort of lower, sort of central valley core area. I mean, when we were pitching the job, we sort of said, "Look, guys, you have space here to create like your own coliseum for a Ryder Cup." And as you would have seen, like there's hospitality on 1, 7, 16, and 17, which all came around this sort of low point, which sort of acted as sort of the central nucleus for, number one, the spectator, because you didn't really have to go very far, and you kept coming back to that central area. And I come back to the routing. Like the first hole, it was imperative that we got the stage and the hospitality and the first tee in that area. We could have very easily made the 10th the first, but as I said, like we always felt the back 9, finishing on 18, that worked better. But having the first in that area allowed us to like then get viewing platforms. Obviously, you got the huge hospitality on the right of the first, 7, 16. They could all see into the first, which made the experience for so many more people so much better. But for the golfer, they also knew that you play the first, you then go out, you then come back in with number 7, then you go out again, and then the whole climax, 16, 17, you come back in. So it's very easy for the player, and in terms of for the spectator, but in terms of the player, they always knew that they were coming in and out and coming back to that central area, which I think added to in my view, added to the success
Yeah.
of the event. Yeah. So
Well,
in terms of difficulty, we're fortunate we had space. We had a little bit more land. I think one of the trickiest parts of the build was that in an ideal world, you would have just done everything in one go, closed the whole golf course. But it was it's a members golf club, and fair play to the golf club. They're trying to keep the members happy. So they had 27 holes. They were able to always keep 18 holes open. So the phasing made it slightly tricky. So phasing, there's a bit of archaeology. There was then the COVID. So it all, it made for a tricky project, but such an amazing project to be part of. Yeah.
now this is a question that I'm going to ask just from what you just said. Right, you've got a club of 300, say, members. I don't know how many is at Marco Simone, and you have the club obviously on one side saying we want the best golf course, blah blah blah, and then you've got the European Tour and Tour Pros or the captain of the Ryder Cup suggesting that we need to have this. And then you have TV guys saying we need to have this spectacle. It needs to. Is there anywhere? It must be a very hard balancing act just to get everyone happy.
It is. I mean, but right from the European Tour brings so much experience of Ryder Cups and setups and what they're looking to achieve from a golf course. So it's not just us doing the design and then building the golf course. We're doing the design, we then speaking with the tour, we then speaking with the golf club. I mean, yes, it adds a couple more layers of difficulty, but it's everybody was always involved, and all designs and ideas, and they're all being spoken through. And as I say, Ryder Cup Europe and the European Tour, they have so much experience with this that having them involved at the very beginning is invaluable.
No, very much so.
Yeah, so I would say definitely helped. I mean the layers of difficulty are, you're obviously trying to satisfy the golf club, that are trying to keep the members happy. That, as I say, you're then building in multiple phases. Then contractor has to go off site, then come back on site. That adds complexity to the project. But COVID was terrible for many things, but it would be fair to say that it helped this golf course and helped the Ryder Cup at Marco Simone, because it just gave us that extra year to get ready. When I think it'd be fair to say, when a golf course needs that time to mature, and the extra year helped. It helped. Yeah.
Okay, so just to final point on that one is when you have a club, it doesn't matter which one, and then you have tour pros. What's the questions they ask, and what's the kind of things do they have similar wants and needs, or do they have very different ones when a tour pro asks for a golf course, or what?
Are you talking about in general, or are you talking in specifically about Marco Simone? Because I mean,
in general.
In general, okay.
General, what's the questions they ask, and why? What's the differences in their opinion?
Well, I think if we're talking about Marco Simone a little bit, the tour pros are going, why are so many of the greens elevated? Well, that's just the site. Number two, it also gave us some great, backdrops and amphitheaters to green complexes, which adds to the spectator experience. And I think that's what people, with the Ryder Cup, to have the spectator plays a massive part. I mean, you don't get that number. I mean, you get them for the Open, but I mean, you're getting like 50,000 people a day around there.
Yeah,
so,
it's wild.
If when you talk about tour pros, well, I mean, I think it's like every golfer; they've all got an opinion on stuff. But I mean, every golfer has an opinion on things. I mean, if we're working with tour pros on a project and a design project, they will have specific things that they want to see on a particular design, particular bunker styles, greens, how they want the greens to look, etc., etc. So, but if you're dealing with tour pros and how they feel immediately after they've just played a golf course, it can depend. Yeah.
Oh, if you're on site, do you try and keep away if it's a tournament week?
No, we were on site for all three Italian Opens. It was important to see how they were playing and how things worked. I mean,
did you? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, one of the most fascinating conversations, and it was great to be involved with, was actually doing site walks with the captain and the vice captains, and sort of understanding their thinking and what they're looking to achieve, and what they're looking for the golf course to do. And it was, I mean, it was great. It was great that Luke Donald only made some very, very minor tweaks. So that was also a good thing. But yeah, but they play a totally different game. I mean, it's incredible how far they hit the ball. I think going back to last week at the US Open, what was really, really good to see is, like, that was one of the few occasions where a pro just couldn't hit the ball down there as far as he liked and then get away with it. They actually had to hit the fairway. And I think, looking at the Italian Opens, I mean, obviously Ryder Cup is totally different as match play golf, but Italian Opens, I mean, one of the pleasing things there, the scores for the three Italian Opens were 11 under, 12 and 13 for a Pro Tour. So it showed that even though it was only a golf course like 7,200, with some serious elevation change where people could hit the ball, like on 12, I mean, some pros could hit the ball 400 yards down there on a par 5. But you had to be accurate, and like some of the fine margins that at professional level that you're trying to, it was really fascinating to see what the strengths of both teams would be, and how get involved in those conversations.
Oh, I can imagine those would have been fascinating. Because I've heard some of the people talk about it, and they're talking about 5% or something like that over the whole team It's
It
crazy.
even it was less than that. It was unbelievable. But you know, I remember one of the questions I suppose it was a question. It was said sort of tongue in cheek, was like, "So, are Europe going to win on this golf course you decided?" You're I
Can you give us?
I just said, if they play well, then they probably will. But yeah,
Hit the right
it's
shots.
yeah. But I mean, it was really really interesting to be involved in those conversations and that.
Would you be able to give us a wee insight into what the Team Europe was planning, asked for, or would that be
Well, I
kept
mean,
secret for?
I mean, everybody saw it. I mean, but I mean, it's no different to what you saw in Paris. You got to hit the fairway, and you got to hit the fairway at a particular length. What was interesting, like if you look at how things changed on 10, for instance, they started the week hitting driver, and then everybody was going, actually, we're going to hit 3-wood, and we're going to hit a 5-6 iron into a green, which for what you see on everyday golf, how many times do you see a professional golfer hitting a 5-6 iron into a par 4 these days?
Yeah.
It just really doesn't happen. So I mean, I think and one of the nice takeaways that I took was when Zach Johnson had made one of his scouting trips out there, and he said one of the things that Marco Simone does ask you is they ask you to hit a variety of different shots. You will have uphill, downhill, side hill, but you generally have to hit a lot of clubs in the bag, which I think is a great thing. And one of the things, as of one of your earlier questions, one of your philosophies, yes, you're trying to make them hit multiple clubs. You don't want them to be hitting driver wedge all day long. And I think, yeah, definitely saw that as a positive.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. There's just to finish off on Marco Simone. I do think your routing there was very walkable. I've walked it before. I thought for something that you'd think has big walks between tees and greens, I thought it was quite. And the massive elevation change, I thought it was a very good routing for that.
Great. I wouldn't be. I think it's 35 degrees today. I think I might take the buggy if I was playing at Marco Simone right now.
I did play in February.
Well, there we go. Yeah.
But yeah, more to do with temperature rather than anything else. If it was to do with walkability, but there's not massive walks between tees and greens. There's no, which is something you can see on in some golf courses built for tour viewing and tour golf.
For sure. I mean, but it's not something we, as architects, you try to do. You obviously want, that connection. And I think, old school golf courses, have that lovely connection between greens and tees, but when you are, a tournament, for instance, of the size of a Ryder Cup, you've got to factor in how deep the crowds are going to be, the space for people to get, from the green to the tee, and the players, how you're going to move all these people. And I think, one of the requirements actually of the routing was that there was no crossovers. So for instance, if you had to walk from one green and you had to cross over, a hole to get to the next tee box, that becomes an absolute nightmare. So, the front nine and the back nine, we had to try and make sure that they were split so that, the way the player walks is the way the spectator walks. And we've just got to try and, keep things moving so that you don't get these bottlenecks, which you sometimes can do.
Well, I guess in the Ryder Cup, it's 4 matches probably on 4 holes or 5 holes.
Correct.
It's the whole crowds in one section of the golf course at one time, and they have to fall. It has to flow around it.
It does to a certain extent. It does, but actually, what a lot of people do is they actually just wait. So they'll find 3 or 4 places, and then they'll see that all the groups come through, and then they'll move to a place, and then they'll wait for those groups to come back through again. And that tends to be, from my experience of how I've wanted to watch, because the crowds are so deep and there's so many that you actually, if you can get a good vantage point, it's actually sometimes really good just to wait there. And so everybody people who knew me that were going to Rome, they sort of said, where should we sit, and there was one spot behind 13T where you could see 12, 13, 16, 1 if you wanted to. That was like you got a great vantage point over the whole site, which I think that's an like Paris. If you to compare with Paris National, that was some great elevation for the spectators. Each golf hole had this big embankments around each hole, but you only really saw that golf hole, whereas at Marco Simone you could get vantage points of 5-6 golf holes if you in a particular location.
Well,
I think that's one of the strengths.
That's one of the uniqueness of the site is the clubhouse is at the bottom, and then you have to take on the hill, and it's not going down and then coming back. Which is probably a positive, because when you're climbing the hill at Marco Simone at any point, it's early on in the 9. When when you're tired, you're coming back towards being down at the bottom of the hill, which is probably a good thing. Just thinking about it.
I mean, I would say that ordinarily we wouldn't have, if it was a blank site, you'd probably try and get the clubhouse on the high ground. I mean,
yeah, it would be the
clubhouse
normal thing.
At Marco Simone, a clubhouse on the high ground, looking to the west over, over Rome. That would have been probably the first thing we would have blobbed on. A plan was like try and maximize that opportunity. But for whatever reasons, we don't know. The golf course was 30 years old. For whatever reasons, the clubhouse ended up being where it is, and I'm sure there was very good reasons why it was there. But yeah.
Top100golfcourses.com has set the standard for golfers worldwide, and now you can wear that standard proudly. Premium apparel and exclusive gear for those who truly know the game. Shop now at top100golfcourses.com.
Okay, so I've been going through your golf courses you built. You've obviously done Marco Simone, which was a complete redesign. You've got Royal Greens in Saudi Arabia, which is obviously a very interesting site. You've got Evian you did work at, which is in the Alps. So it was a renovation work rather than anything else, was it not?
Well, so Evian was, I mean, first of all, it's such a beautiful place. No, I wouldn't say it's tweaking either. But Evian, we had, so they went from just a normal LPGA event back in 2012, and then for 2013 they were becoming the Evian Championship, the major. We had an Alps winter, which was horrific, and we had to do 20 greens, all the bunkers, all the tees. So I wouldn't say it was just a little
okay,
tweak.
So a lot.
We had to do a lot. We had to change some golf holes because the client wanted to get like, so I'm not sure I don't know if you're familiar with Evian, but they've got the short par 3 16th and the 18th and the 15th, and they wanted to get like a real central area again where all the crowds, I mean, nobody really goes too much further than around that area. And then you've got 5 green as well, so there's a lot going on in and around the clubhouse. So yeah, it was a really, I mean, the weather was just horrendous, and it made it
It must be so tricky because you can only do the work during the period that people don't want to be continuously playing the golf course, especially when you're doing something of that size.
Exactly. And we were just the weather card was a very difficult one that it dealt us. So it was but they are fantastic people to work for, and all credit to everyone. Like we've been going back for many years since then. I mean, it'd be fair to say at that time it was a rush to get everything done, but we keep going back, and they are continually improving, continually striving to get better and better. And it's a real pleasure to be still working with them.
So we've got Italy, we've got desert golf in Saudi Arabia, we've got alpine golf, and then we've got golf in Russia. And all of different types in terms of blank canvas to Renault to Redesign.
Yeah.
How do you balance all that? How do you take your knowledge that you have and take on such a variety of sites? And
Well,
yeah,
I
sorry.
think, yeah, no, I think, I mean, the let's take the one in Russia, for instance. I mean, well, I think it'd be fair to say that every golf course architect loves an 18-hole site, new 18-hole build.
Oh, it's the dream.
Exactly. So Russia. I mean, we transformed this potato field into a real, I mean, it's got great amounts of movement. Lots of variety. We planted loads of heather, trying to give it a different character. Yeah, I mean, it was a great project. And I'd say it was probably, even though it wasn't my first build, because Royal Greens in Saudi, that started in 2007. But then, the financial crash came, so that got put on hold for quite a few years, and then so Russia was really, the first, job that I worked on, and we had some. They put together a great team, some real experienced shapers, who did it's, and you could just say to these guys, because it's such a blank site, you could say, guys, go wild, show me what you can do. Here's, yes, you've got to balance it. You've got to balance it up, and it was really interesting. So we had Steve Karate and Scott Lachlan, and they were best brothers-in-laws or best friends or some, So it was like, right, you go and build, you go and shape up one hole, and then we'll see what we like and what we don't like, and then we'll find out what style we want to really go for. And yeah, I think, well, they seem to have a lot of fun. But
I can
and
imagine that would be a lot of fun.
yeah, but that's the great thing about golf. You can work in Russia, you can work in Saudi Arabia, but at the end of the day, you're just in the middle of a field, in the middle of really sometimes in the middle of nowhere, and it's I mean,
There must be
routing.
difficulties. There must be difficulties
Oh,
arise
there
from
is.
such unique sites. Like in terms of location, there's so little golf in Russia, so getting sand or getting whatever, or
Well, materials wasn't too much of an issue there. I think, some of the difficulties is just like the travel. But from the moment you're in your hotel and then you're 5 minutes to site, you could be in Saudi Arabia,
yeah.
but you're in Russia. You're just out there with a shaper, you know, building a golf course. So a routing plan for me, is I love that stage. But the construction phase is also, amazing. And yeah, I mean, and that's, one of the phases, to not have any projects in construction is the hardest for me. So it's been great, like at the moment, you know you mentioned the Alps, so working in Evian, working at Crans-sur-Sierre where they play the Omega Masters. We go back there every year, do the odd tweak, but then also this past year been at Infinitum for 5-6 months has been great, and it's another great job.
Well, tell me a bit about what's going on at Infinitum. I know there's 3 courses there, and then you're altering
So
the hills.
45 holes. They've got so the Lakes course and the Hills course. They play host to Q School in November.
Yeah.
So the club did a little bit of work on the Lakes course over the past 2 years, bunkers and changing out the cool season fairways to Bermuda, and now since we started back end of last year with some clearing work on the Hills course, we're now upgrading that golf course over the next 2 years.
Very good. Are you looking forward to it? Is it a nice site?
It's a great site. I mean, the Lakes course is a lot flatter and obviously around lakes. They've got some natural wetlands. But the Hills course has got so much more variety, so much more elevation change. It's got these amazing backdrops to 3 of the green complexes. These rock quarries frame the back of the greens, and they look spectacular. I mean, they often, whenever they market the golf course or the resort, there was always that picture of the rock quarry behind 18 on the hills. We've now totally changed that golf hole. I mean, we've obviously not touched the quarry at the back, which is, but the opportunity to do something really special on 18 especially, we've sort of, I mean, in effect, they're going to have an island green. I mean, there are multiple reasons why they're going to have this this green complex, but I mean, the main driver was that people. I mean, it's a short par 4, and people were actually taking on the old green, and the clubhouse was quite close, and balls were going on the terrace. So, you know, we had to stop that. So to do that, we've had to take the driver out of the players' hands. So the greens turned. It's now like a really long, narrow green, sort of stays slightly on the diagonal to play, depending on how far they want to hit their tee shot. But the green now, previously it sort of sat detached from the view in the back, and the new green shape sort of really sits beautifully underneath and in scale and proportion with that backdrop. And it's one of the most spectacular backdrops in European golf, and I think the change in the golf hole is just going to enhance that. Whether the members who play the golf hole feel exactly the same way is another question. But I think I'm really excited about that one because it comes right at the end of the round. People have played 17 holes knowing that they've got to hit the shot on 18. The clubhouse is, I don't know, 10, 15 meters up in the air. They're going to have friends looking down on this. You can see the fairway, you can see the shot. And I think it just adds a little bit of drama to the end of the round. And nowhere else on that golf course is the player asked to hit that shot, and
Okay.
they've just got to commit. And I
Yeah.
think going back to my earlier point, providing variety, giving people options, asking different questions, that's the different question on that golf course. And I think there is a way to play it for the average golfer. They can go so far down the fairway and then have a 30-yard little flick, but they've got to hit it down the length of the green. They've got to hit it over the water. So, but yeah, that's just the questions you're going to ask. So,
But I guess for resort golf, in terms of like a group of people sitting there enjoying themselves and watching out, or in trepidation to go out onto the golf course because at the end you've got to take on the shot, or I'm sure there'll be people that are right up there. Sorry, I'm sure there'll be people that are very excited just to be like, okay, right, when's 18 coming?
exactly.
Because
And I mean, I go on an annual golf tour. Let's say, for instance, that's the last hole on tour. That's their championship for the year, and they've got to hit that shot to win their annual golf trip or whatever.
yeah,
That's and then they might have to have a beer or something afterwards to celebrate victory or defeat or not being able to hit the shot. But the
it's
hills has got so much going on
is it
um,
would the 10th at Belfry be a kind of similar kind of style of hole?
in a way, but not really, because like you can drive the 10th at the
Yeah,
Belfry.
yeah, yeah.
What we couldn't have here was, because of the clubhouse, we couldn't have people driving it. So it all comes down to the strategy off the tee. So we've got 2 bunkers on the outside of the dog leg, which is, say, 230 away. But then we've gone on the fairway's so wide. We've gone and placed a little central bunker, sort of 20, 25 yards short, sort of slightly to the right. So it gives the golfer the option: do I go short of that bunker? Do I play between them? Or do I fly the central bunker and then I've got like 60, 70 yards down the length of the green? So there's really, and I think, from a pro's point of view, I'm really fascinated to see how they're going to tackle that at Q School. Which of those options they're going to take when they do play it. I mean, as an amateur, one of the things we also did, we added another forward tee, just so that for the older members and the younger juniors, they have that opportunity to get just that little bit further down the fairway to then not have such a long shot in. But yeah, we'll see. But I mean, you got the 18th, the 13th, the 17th. They've all got that quarry backdrop. I mean, we haven't really done too many big changes aside from the grassing and the bunkers on 13 and 17. But 10 we've had to change the par 3. They've now put in a big parking lot, so we've had to move that hole over. But another it can turn out to be a great little par 3. And then 15 and 16 are 2 brand new holes, so they're going to be developing all the residential in the not too distant future. And those 2 holes, so 16 played sort of against the land around the corner. Properties were going to go in on the slice side, and it was just going to be quite dangerous for those properties going in. So we flipped 15 and 16. So, but yeah, it really is a lovely site, and we're confident that people are going to enjoy what we've come up with when it's finished.
What do you think's next for golf architecture?
Oof. Good question. I mean, you can't. Short courses are for sure becoming, much more popular. Inquiries for shorter golf courses. I mean, we had an interesting one the other day. Yeah, just for an interesting number of golf holes as a short course, which is fine. I mean, you get some great little projects. But I find that the short courses, that they're often, on top of an 18-hole course or another facility. I mean, at Infinitum, we're looking to, you've got the Lakes course, you've got the Hills course, then they've got the Ruins course, which in itself is a really good 9-hole course, slightly shorter than the other ones. But they're building a luxury hotel. It's like, what does the market demand another full length 9-hole golf course when you've got 36 already? And like providing excellent practice facilities and a short 9-hole par 3 course, I think, providing that flexibility that you can offer the golfer is important, and the golfer of all abilities, so from the young people to the old people. I think that is important. Can't get away from the TGL, what people are doing there, whether that brings more people into the game, and at the end of the day, that's the important thing. You've got to try and keep bringing people into the game. I mean, whether you liked TGL or not, it looks like it's here to stay for a little while. So yeah, it's those sort of things are definitely coming more and more on board. I mean, and little putting courses. A couple of architects are really branching out onto into the putting course. I think what did Tiger, is it putt stroke or pop stroke or something? I don't know how that's taken off, but just bringing in different markets of people. I think that's what it's definitely going a little bit that way. In terms of inquiries for golf courses, we're tending to see a lot more further to the east. And
but
these
that's
would
just
be,
growing the game, right?
but these are in regions that have quite a bit of golf already, which is but growing the game in the further east in Europe. I mean, that's still gonna happen, but there's still seems to be a good demand in the Far East for sure. With I mean, Vietnam seems to be one of the next hotspots for sure.
Yeah, no, I've heard a few architects tell me they've been offered a number of projects over in China or Vietnam or Cambodia or wherever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've got one currently working in Indonesia, a real interesting place to go.
Is it
Been out there a couple of times. It's been good. Yeah.
Is it difficult to get the course the way you want it because of the environment out there? Because maybe the grasses you grow just might not suit a decent golf course, or
well, I mean, this one's going to be wall to wall paspalum, and I mean that's got to do with proximity to the sea, quality of the water. So if you're looking for a firm and fast running golf course, I mean, a little bit difficult with that variety of grass. But that they really see golf. They don't. I live just up from Woking Golf Club. You try and be around in 2.5 hours. That's the way I like to play. But it's an event. Golf in the Far East it's a day event. And they are catered for I'm going to play golf in the morning, then I'm going to have a few drinks, and I'm going to have a bit of food, and then it's a totally different setup. I mean, and that's what works for them, out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's just interesting to see what will happen, because there's a lot of golf course architects currently, because the industry is probably maybe its healthiest it's been since 2007, 8, really.
It's healthy, yeah, for sure. I think one. It's going to be interesting to see how, and I mean, we spoke about Sam and GEO. I think they're going to become they're an important player in world golf already, and they're going to become more and more important, on that side of things, especially with water and stuff.
But that's the thing. So a lot of the sites within the classical regions are all taken or used or unable to be planned, right? So you just
Majority are for sure. Yeah.
So you have to go to areas outside of the Western world to be able to then create new sites.
Yeah, no, that'd be fair to say. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean the number of, in let's say Western Europe, the UK, the inquiries for new builds are not high at all. It's more renovation of existing. So yeah, new markets. Got to continually look for new markets. Yeah.
There's speaking of a growing market, and I know you did Royal Greens there. Saudi Arabia has obviously been very involved with Live and are building a number of golf courses, because I think they're hoping to do some of the Live stuff there, right? Are they?
Saudi Arabia is, yeah. I mean, they're I mean, I don't know how much, how many new courses. I mean, there have been a few developed for sure. There was a lot in the pipeline. I'm not sure how many are coming on board. But yeah, they're definitely making a push to increase the number of golf courses. Most definitely, yeah. And it looks like some interesting sites. I mean, Saudi Arabia was it was an interesting place to work, and more so like back in 2007, 2008, there was absolutely nothing out on that site, and we we had to drive 120 kilometers every morning to site, nothing there, 120 k's back to Jeddah. And in a 4-day site trip, I lost 7 kilograms just because it was so hot. You're just drinking water. I mean, great for the waistline, but that made for a really, really tricky project. But then when we came back after the recession, they'd obviously developed a hotel which is 5 minutes from the site. There'd been a lot more development and made things, a lot easier. And as I said at the start, whether you're in Russia, whether you're, in Italy or the Alps, you're just in a field, working with a shaper, and that's the great bit about, what I love so much about the job. Yeah.
Very good. Well, let's go on to your favorite type of hole to design.
Oh,
hit me.
Wow. Favorite type of hole. Well, I think when I'm doing the routing, I'm always going like you've got to have a good mix of lengths on the par threes for sure. Different directions, different lengths. I think
different elevation.
Different. I mean, look, sometimes there's elevation, sometimes there's not elevation.
Yeah.
Um,
But just having one slightly higher than the other can be elevation change, right?
Oh no, for sure. I mean, being able to see exactly. I mean, I think going back to Marco Simone, we had a really short 13th there, and it was right. So the right side of the green you can't really see, but you can see all of the left side. But there was 2 amazing umbrella pines that sort of framed the golf hole, and there was a farmyard, old farm ruin in the background, which formed the backdrop, and then you had one of the the Roman hills as well. So it's like, right, I can't take that tree out. I mean, because to take out to lower the ground to see the right side, but then it's like that, you get them on all sort of old style golf courses where you've got just a semi bit of blindness to it. You see the flag, you see the top of the flag, but then it's all that like, I hit the shot, and that's to like the hole in one pin, but I can't see, it's sort of that when you come around the corner, you sort of see the ball, and I like that. I do enjoy that every now and then. I mean, it would be fair to say Marco Simone had probably one or two sort of raised greens that we wouldn't normally do as many semi-blind second shots, but there are multiple reasons why that happened. But I mean, I think if you could do like I wouldn't say one hole, but I think if I look through the courses that I've done, the the quality and the challenge and the variety of the set of par threes are probably what I've often taken most out of the courses that I've done. And yeah, I mean, we got one, that 16th at Evian is one that really, I mean, the client was really, they were like so direct. Right, the Evian is annually won at 20 to 25 under. We're becoming a major. I mean, the site it's really compact. Couldn't really add any length, so the real challenge we had to add was in the greens. And I mean, but then 2 years later it was really wet, and somebody still won at 19 under par. But you can't help those sort of things sometimes. But like 16 at Evian, it's got all the hospitality on the right, looking down on this green, which is so narrow, really undulating, water in front, and just the player just has to hit the shot. And like on some projects like Evian, like Marco Simone, even Infinitum, because you know that the professional is going to be there. To get to ask to make them feel uncomfortable on a couple of shots, I think is really important. And Evian has that on that short par three. So yeah, doing a nice little short par three is great. I mean, the shortest one is obviously that one at Troon. It's just
Yeah.
what an amazing golf hole.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
hole's coming. The history, and you just know when you walk up the hill from 7 green to 8 tee, right? I've got to hit the shot, and I failed. But anyway,
but the thing is, there's lots of ways. I don't think distance is the best way to. We didn't really talk about it, but we kind of went past it. But we're talking about Oakmont, and you saw how much these guys struggled. It was won by 1 under par because the last putt went in.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened at Muirfield in 2013. There was one guy under par, and Muirfield they're playing off tees that are 6, 9, 7.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's because if you set up the golf course for the pros like that, and not for what the members would want, and you make it so if you go in the rough, you're dead, or you're screwed. It's a great way of shortening the golf course. It means that top golf course. I hate it in terms of my rankings. I don't want to lose golf balls.
No, for sure.
And I don't want the regular person. I'm not going to rate a golf course well because the rough's big. Actually, we'll penalise it because strategic golf goes out the window.
Yeah.
But for the pros, it needs to be penal.
It does. I watched a lot of. I pretty much watched the whole coverage of the US Open. I mean, it was really interesting listening to their debate about the 8th, over 300 yards long. But at the end of the day, everybody's just putting a number down on their scorecard.
Par's relevant.
Yeah, just score less than the others, and you're going to be the winner. So I mean, but the 8th, even though it's long, the entrance was so wide.
Yeah.
So I think the design is balancing, the demand of the shot. But they're asking the right question. I would have liked what the USGA have done quite well in previous versions. Let's say, for instance, at LA, where I think it was final round 78 yards or something. I mean, they had a graphic that they put the 8th and the was it 15 or something? I can't remember the number hole at LA, but they put that golf hole onto the 8th just to show how short it was, relative to the relative to the one at Oakmont. And I think I think being able to ask all those different questions, and like going back to Marco Simone, I think in match play golf it played really different to how it played in the Italian Open, because in match play golf, it's you versus him. It's match play, so they're like, I think everybody took it on. And when you're playing, foursomes, I don't know if anybody laid up if they were, like, let's say 2 up going down 16, they may have laid up, but with match play golf, they're always taking the aggressive option. Whereas at the Italian Open, depending on how they were faring in the tournament, they would either lay back and play it slightly differently. And going back to one of your questions about philosophies, I think what I try to do on my golf holes is, like, there will be an overriding strategy to a golf hole, but then I also like to have a particular pin position on a green that actually says, actually, hold on, or a couple of pin positions where you actually play the golf hole differently. So, for instance, 16 at Marco Simone, when the pin was sort of far right, in my head, because there was sort of like a little knuckle, sort of middle of the green, which meant that if you took on the stream and tried to play as far to the left and then had a shot down the length of the green, the knuckle was actually protecting that pin. So it
Yeah.
was really awkward to get at that pin position. So then the actual play is to play right of the central bunker, in between the 2 bunkers, and then leave yourself a pitching wedge and then spin it back to that pin location. And that's, like, so that's one of the things, I look to do, just to try and, yes, there's you can play a golf hole in one particular way 80% of the time, but every now and then you've got to ask the player to think about things a little bit differently, and maybe there's another way of attacking that particular golf hole. Yeah,
There's
but I mean, going back to sorry, just on 16.
no, on you go, on you go.
No, 16 and 11 at Marcus Wayne. Yeah, it was really
I'm
interesting
shocked
to
that they
see.
could get there on 11. That was amazing. Having played that hole, it's an people don't understand how long that hole is uphill.
Yeah, and they were playing off the back, but the wind sort of came, off the down and off the right. So, you were able to draw the ball in there. And I think, with making 11 and 16 different was important. 11's obviously uphill, slightly right to left, calling for a draw. You couldn't get there with a fade, really, because it all just sort of kicked off. Whereas, you look at 16, you had to hit the other shot downhill, fade it in there. And it's, like you're trying to, and it's that variety, you're trying to make them play different shots, ask different questions. Like they're always going. A lot of golfers are now left to right, and just trying to think, well, okay, well, maybe can you hit the right to left? I mean, you're trying to challenge the best players in the world. These guys are so freaking good. So anyway,
I'm just thinking if I've got many more questions. I do have one more. That is one I ask everyone, and that is your top 5 favorite golf courses. So the ones that mean
right,
the most to you. So
right. So
it doesn't have to be the best, just so you know.
you can guess number 1,
The old
which
course.
I've already mentioned the old course. Then I'm gonna cheat on the next few, because I'm gonna say it's the best 36 holes in golf, and we are very fortunate that our EGD offices are in Sunningdale, and we've had the opportunity of playing Sunningdale on numerous occasions. So Sunningdale is a favorite, and we have this debate in the office, old or new, and I'm just in the old camp on that one, but they're both amazing.
What do you think about Gil Hans going in there? And he's very much obviously a guy who widens width and offers a restorationist, let's say, but also is thinking about strategic golf almost at the forefront. But I've always thought that the old was more of a penal example of penal golf course architecture, being a Willie Park Jr.
A little bit. I mean,
Not
look,
to be a bad penal's not a bad thing if you get it right, right?
Yeah, but
Look at Pine Valley.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, no, great example. I mean, look, he does some, wherever he goes, he does some great stuff. So I think, whatever he is allowed to do at Sunningdale, will be fantastic.
Well, I'm sure it will be.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess, let's. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see, the change on those two golf courses once Gill has been in there. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think they are.
It's one of the golf clubs with the highest golf IQ in the UK. They've got a really knowledgeable membership, so it'll be exciting to see what they see how it all comes out.
Yeah, no, I'm fascinated to see how that comes out. So I've got. So I went to the States last year. On the things I need to do is play much more golf in the States. But a
You
friend
and
of
me
mine,
both.
a friend of mine put together an amazing trip where we went to Pinehurst and we went to Baltimore and Congressional. So it was amazing. Um, and Pinehurst number 2 was I just absolutely loved it. And in a way, similar to St Andrews, there's a lot of width. So many options on your shots. Keep it in play, and you can get around. It's we were very fortunate. We played a month before the US Open, but we were unfortunate in that this huge thunderstorm came through, so we didn't get to play all the golf holes. But it had such a impact on. I thought it was fantastic. The whole facility, and what it offers. I mean, all those golf courses, unbelievable. And I see a little placard behind. My happy place, Pinehurst. I think I probably bought that on day one. I'd already fallen in love. We played that little short course right at the very beginning of the trip. Um, then, so love Pinehurst, and then I've got two for um, on the list. So Perranporth down in Cornwall. I don't know if you've been down there.
I've not been down to it yet, but
Oh,
all I've
gee,
heard is good things.
it's so wild. It's so good. I think there's something about. I mean, we played on such a windy day. And there's something, playing links golf in the wind and actually coming away having played reasonably well. I get so much satisfaction out of that. But no, but I mean, the reason I put Perranporth is it was just so wild and so rugged,
Yeah.
and I just thought I can't wait to get back there. And then in the same sort of in a um, slightly different vein, but it's also in terms of out there golf design. And unfortunately, um, we had to rush back for our tea time at Pinehurst number 2. But in the morning we played Tobacco Road,
Oh
and
yeah.
and yeah, I mean Robin in our office talks about it all the time. So it was great to get back out there. The owner of he was great, like in accommodating us, but it's just because we were so rushed around there. There was just it's it's such an amazing assault on the senses, and it's just so much to take in that you know I've got it on the list because it's like the one place where I've got to go back there and just like soak it all in. But what a piece of architecture. So
I've
yeah,
used
so
wine a lot. I don't know if you're a wine fan.
I'm not a wine fan.
Ah, bugger. I use it a
Yeah,
lot as an example because the majority of the top 100 golf courses are like your Burgundies and Bordeaux's. And then something like Tobacco Road is just an out there kind of when you find something just off the beaten track, wild something growing high up a volcano in Sicily, and no one knows about it. But now it's obviously very famous.
yeah.
But in terms of just something that you've never tasted before,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
it's like that's the best way I can describe it.
But the great thing about it is it's so much width,
Yeah,
and I mean, and that's the thing about I mean we could get onto this the whole we all architects want to give as much width as we can, but then there's obviously comes back to my point. Okay, well then using so much water, how do you balance that? But Tobacco Road has all that width, which is which is amazing, which gives you like, okay, that's the right part of the fairway, that's the wrong part of the fairway, and depending on pin locations, etc. But yeah, so that's the one place that I'd love to get back. And then this one is, I went to university, I said at the start, in Port Elizabeth, and we have, and next to the university campus was a links course called Humewood, which I know that you've got ranked on your South Africa, and it's in your top 10, which I was very happy to see, because, and it's Port Elizabeth is known as the Windy City in South Africa, and it can blow an absolute hoolie there. But probably the only real links course in the country, lots of width, real rolling landscape in terms of the fairways, real, get all sorts of lies, but, very generous. But the real reason I loved it so much was because being at the university, we could go to the pro shop and say, we're part of the university golf team, and we would play for 20 rand, which in today's term is 80p. So, to have the opportunity to play one of the great golf courses in South Africa, or in effect 80p,
That's
was,
amazing.
yeah. So, why would you not love that? I mean, okay, well, I've got a lecture golf. I think I know which one I'm going to do. So, yeah, but an outstanding golf course in itself, even though it was dirt cheap if you knew how. So
That sounds very cool.
Yeah.
I'd been hoping to get to South Africa for a few years now and just haven't been able to get there. But
like
I'll
us all,
definitely
we've
have
got
to
so
put it on
many
the list.
locations around the world that you've just got to.
It's so tough,
I mean,
isn't it?
America's so big. I mean, I have the opportunity, very fortunately, to go to Bethpage in September, and I'm thinking, the more I think about it, even though the flights are booked, is actually a trip to Long Island and playing some of the courses along there might be a really good use of that trip.
Very
yeah,
much so. Well, you'll know
America's
so
so
many
big.
people.
Yeah.
There'll be so many people that you've come across to know, and that they'll be members of all these places. But that's the one difference between America and European golf, is the access in America is much more difficult for someone to get around.
No, for sure.
Yeah. There's, I think that's me with everything I wanted to ask you. The one last question that I've just thought of now is, what's the best golf hole you've ever designed?
I'm going to say the par 5 fifth at Linna, and only for the reason is that it got me into the industry. That was the foot in the door that I needed, and long
And
may
it's
it
probably
continue.
is the only hole you've never played that you've designed?
No, we quite often we are in before do the design, and then we don't really tend to go back. But I have played every one I've designed. So I haven't played that one yet.
Well, good luck to you. I'm sure you'll be getting there. Is it this year? 20 years?
It's the 20 year this year. Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have to get over that. That'll be great.
Yeah, no, should be.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. That was a very, very insightful conversation, and I've very much enjoyed it.
Thank you. No, it's been a pleasure meeting you. Pleasure to chat. Really enjoyed it.